Let me welcome you to this forum on water wastewater. My name is Lukas Löffler. I'm the head of water and wastewater for Schneider Electric. And I've worked in this very important and very interesting industry for the last couple of years, running some of the premier companies in this space. Today's topic is about the digital transformation of water and wastewater and the future vision that we want to bring to this industry. And the transformation has started a couple of years ago, but is accelerating very much so in the last couple of years. Some of the transformation agents are sitting here on stage with me, and it is my pleasure to welcome three very distinguished guests who I would like to introduce briefly before I start with a couple of remarks. First, I would like to welcome Michael To. Michael is the Chief Information Officer of the Public Utility Board, or PUB, the National Water Agency of Singapore. His new and expanded position reflects the increasingly critical role of IT and cybersecurity in this space. And his main job is to support the Public Utility Board, the organizational and the operational means. Sorry, I should actually show you the faces and the names. Thank you, Sean. So in this role, Michael is driving smart technologies and smart systems across PUB, and also developing a robust cybersecurity strategy to safeguard PUB's operation. Michael is in fact a true water expert. I've known him for many, many years, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here, Michael. My second guest here in the middle is Stéphane Bessadi. He's a senior water utility specialist with Asian Development Bank, or ADB. And in that function, he leads innovative water and wastewater practices and technologies for the water service industry. In his role, Stéphane is looking for innovative solutions for energy savings in cooperation with ADB operations. He's developing roadmaps for corporate innovation regarding water efficiency and water sustainability in anticipation of climate change. He also recently received an innovation award for his work, so he must have done something great for his organizations. And a warm welcome to you, Stéphane. We'll wait for the voice to die. And my last colleague, finally, that I want to welcome is Doc Warren, a very old colleague of mine with whom I've worked closely together for a number of years. He's the recently appointed Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Aviva, our sister business, where he is leading the engagement of and growth of Aviva's partnerships with Schneider Electric. Before that, Doc was actually our Vice President of Software Industry Solutions, and in that function we jointly developed a roadmap together for smart water projects, so he's very, very familiar with this topic. A warm welcome to you, Doc. So in a moment, each one of our speakers will share their views on digital transformation in the water wastewater industry, some of the challenges they face, and probably the importance of having a clear vision when they go about that, a sound strategy, but also partnerships as they implement their roadmaps and their ideas. But let me now open the stage and start with a couple of introductory remarks about the water industry more generally. Many of you will know that water is driven very directly by a couple of global megatrends, such as population growth. Population on this planet is going to grow by additional 2 billion people, and it is going to drive the increase of water needs by a factor of 2.5 times above the increase of the population. So it's a massive growth that we expect and a massive draw on our resources. Secondly, urbanization, and I think you don't have to go far. Look at Asia, look at what's happening here. Today we have about 50% of the population living in cities. In the next 30 years, up to 80% of the people are said to live in cities. And cities will have to develop robust and sustainable strategies to provide enough water for the people, but also for the industry who needs these people to move to the cities. And then finally, climate change. There is not a day in which you cannot pick up the newspaper or television and see or read about climate events, about flooding, about storms, droughts, about the depletion of the natural resources. So with each one of these incidents, we are called upon for resilience in our strategies, for robust water supplies, to the cities and to our population. So we're all dependent on this, and of course, we'll hear some of the very specific challenges from our speakers in a moment. What is Schneider Electric doing in the water space? So we basically help our customers with three specific areas. We help them with the optimization of the energy consumption, because energy is a huge factor in the production and in the pumping of water. Don't know if you know, but up to 8% of the world's energy, or up to 4% of the world's electric energy, is used in producing and pumping water and wastewater. It's a huge amount. Schneider, being a traditional group in the electrical space, all about energy management, that's our story, is very well at home in this space. So this is why we have many solutions where we help our clients specifically around this energy savings topic. Secondly, we talk about increase in operational efficiency. We are providing insights, we're turning data into actionable information for our clients, helping them to take the right decisions, where to invest their money, or how to best run and operate their plants and their infrastructure. And then finally, with water being an infrastructure of the very long life cycle, you talk about the average life cycle of a water plant, 35 to 70 years, embedded infrastructure, 100 years and more sometimes. So the life of your assets, especially of the critical assets, is very, very important. We offer complete life cycle management to reduce the total cost of ownership for these assets as well. So those three distinct pillars of activities is where Schneider touches on the water space. So we've seen a lot of movement and development over the last couple of years. And we've traditionally been a very strong player in the operational technology world, and increasingly over the last years invested heavily in IT by buying companies, incorporating some of the leading agents in the field into Schneider Electric. And it is where the IT and the OT needs, where all the action is happening right now, where we see the convergence of the spaces, driving new information, driving new solutions, and driving the advancement of this market. And we are at a threshold of a new age, I would almost say, for water, wastewater. We see a digital transformation happening very quickly, and these developments will bring lots and lots of benefits for the people. Not just in terms of the sub-segments in the market, the network management, the plant management, and management of the resources, but also the way we work with these assets. And this is where I would now like to invite each one of our colleagues to give a little bit of a view and a vision of what they see and how they go about implementing the vision. So Michael, if you would please start.
Thank you very much, Lucas. Happy to be here to share with all of you. I think this is a very international panel, and we are happy to kind of tell you what we are doing here in PUB. Well, PUB is the National Water Agency of Singapore. We have one mission, and one mission only, as my boss will tell you, is to ensure that Singapore never runs dry. That Singaporeans, when we turn on the tap, we have safe drinking water to drink every day, every moment. So we have clarity of mission. And I think many utilities around the world have similar visions, similar missions. So in Singapore, we supply good water, we reclaim used water, and we tame storm water. And Singapore is particularly acute because, as you know, we are a small island state, city all in. We have 700 odd square kilometers of land, housing almost 5 million people. So we need to make sure that we have enough water for our people and for our industry. So every day, the engineers in PUB have to work hard. We have to find what's the solution for us. So we manage the entire water loop, from collection of rainwater, treatment of rainwater, treating it to drinking standards. I think Singapore is one of the few cities in this region where we are blessed with safe drinking water straight from the tap. So we have to work hard at that. And of course, we collect used water. And we all know that if you don't collect used water, it poses a public health danger. For many countries, if used water is not treated properly, it's a source of diseases, illnesses, and overall deterioration of livelihood. So it is important for us to do that. And then, of course, there is also the issue of treatment of used water. How do we then treat it to a standard that can be safely discharged, either into the sea or into the rivers? So for us, we also do this in a large scale. So that allows us to reclaim water. And many of you will know our famous product called the New Water. I think it is a pillar of our sustainability. So we are happy to have that. Then being an island state, of course, we have desalination. So PUB manages the entire loop. We want to serve our customer the best that we can. Next slide, please.
Yep.
As Lucas mentioned just now, I think we are at the cusp, so we have at the inflection point. I think there's now great advancement in digital, great advancement in communications. There are great powers in computing. I think sensors are getting cheaper. Visualization is getting better. So how do we transform? But we must be driven by needs. So in Singapore, we are quite clear. We need to make sure that you don't go thirsty. We've got to make sure that we serve you the best that we can, our customers, including Doug, who is our customer here in Singapore. How do we then ensure that we serve you the best? We know that water consumption is going to increase in Singapore. We know that it's going to be more expensive treating water, collecting them, and piping to your homes. And of course, in Singapore, I think like many cities, less maybe some special places, but like Europe, US, I think we're facing an aging workforce. And of course, you as our customers, you expect more from us. Real-time information, real-time feedback, instantaneous response. There are many more. So we look at these drivers. At the same time, we also look at the risk of not innovating. There are new things like cyber threats. Then there's technology that's growing outdated. And of course, if we don't plan ahead, we're going to get lost in the plot. And of course, there's inefficiencies and wastages. So I think it is timely. It is timely for us to have sessions like this. We are quite clear that we can't do it alone. We need inputs from you as stakeholders, as the private sectors. I think a lot of ideas get generated from the industry. Mm-hmm. And I think it's inevitable that we have to work together to see how we can best meet our needs in Singapore as well as our customers. So thank you. That's my opening.
Thank you very much, Michael. And Stefan, do you want to click yourself or? Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I will very pleased to be here and to be part of this panel to give the views of ADB regarding digital transformation. So I would like to go through with you in the coming few minutes in the ADB strategy 2030 and how to explain you really how digital transformation regarding water utility specifically is really at the heart of this strategy. So as you know, ADB is a financial partner and we are supporting our partner countries since about 50 years. And so now we are in the process of finalizing, it's already finalized and published, the strategy 2030. This strategy is having 7 key operational components, and one of these components is making cities more livable. So as you may see on the slides, it has different key aspects. So first is inclusiveness. So it's really to build a city for the people who are living in this city, and of course environmental sustainability. And improved water supply and wastewater services are key for making a city livable. I mean, it's a basic point, but as you know, in Asia, you have, if we categorize very in summary, you have cities which don't have water supply every day. You have cities which have disrupted water supply every day, and you have cities which are in continuous supply. And maybe you know, but you have much more cities which are having a disrupt water supply compared to the city which are in continuous supply. Regarding wastewater also, of course, as you know, many cities are still lagging good wastewater infrastructures. So it's really two key components of the ADB strategy. So, of course, it goes with improved access to energy efficient systems, and it goes with developing the capacities. And finally, that is really the heart of our presentation and our conversation today, the use of high-level technologies. So, as you may see on the right of the slide, you have here an idea of ADB investment in water. In the last year, for example, it was 2.7 billion. So you may see that it's really covering the whole water cycle from hydropower, water resource, flood management, irrigation, water supply, sanitation, wastewater. So it's 2.7.8 billion, and it will increase in the coming years, of course. But if you see the estimated water investment need for the coming 15 years, it's about 800 billion. So you may see that the needs are huge. And it's very important to leapfrog and to use the digital technology to better use the infrastructure available. For example, it means that IDB is a bank financing infrastructures, but it means that we have to finance infrastructure that helps to build city more resilient, more inclusive, and more green. So regarding the digital transformation, how does it help to go a little bit more deeper in this aspect? You will see on the left up of the slide, you can see what is today the situation in many water utility in Asia. Very often the assets are not very well known, so it means that utilities sometimes don't really know where are their networks. They don't have computers, they don't have IT systems, and regarding the use of resource, very often you have between 30 to 50% of the water losses in urban network. Regarding also the organization, the capacities, the tariff also is also an issue, because when you have a very low service, it's very difficult to ask people to increase the tariff. And finally, strategic planning is really an issue. So you may see that, of course, the target is to go to reach a preferred future, and this preferred future is including the digital transformation. Why? Because there is a huge quantity of data that are now available, as you know, and we have really to make sure that we use this data, as I said before, to build more efficient infrastructures and to bring the best service for the people. So it means that we need really all of us, our financial partners and private sectors, and really and contractors. I mean, any players. We really need to build together these preferred futures to make sure that we really include the digital technologies to be able, for example, at a city level, to anticipate what will be in the coming years the water resources available, to make sure about the water distribution inside the city, and to also make sure about the quantity and the quality of the water that will be treated. So I think a very good example was given on a Singapore case before on how to really optimize these water resources. So finally, regarding the challenge, one of the key points really is to partner and to have a conversation, because, for example, in ADB, you may have a project cycle that are a little bit longer than the new technologies. And you know, you have new technology every year. So how you can incorporate this technology in projects that are developed on 2-3 years, 2 or 3 years. Also, utility capacity to absorb the digital solution is a key point. We are very interested in ADB also in operation of the infrastructure, and as you know, it's a key point how you operate the infrastructures. So you need to have utilities who are able to use the data that are now available. And The contractual aspect also is very important, is how we make sure that we bring private sector and that we make the best use of the private sectors. So finally, you see that the challenge is really very, very interesting, because at the end of the day, it means that you may build utilities that are low carbon, that are cost efficient, that have a long-term vision, and that also climate change adapted. Finally, it's really the key point that it's really serving ADB mission, that is giving better water and wastewater service for everybody, including the poor and the vulnerable. So we'll be very happy to work and to continue to have a conversation to better use the digital technology in the coming years, and it's really at the heart of our strategy.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And maybe just pass on the clicker to Doug. And we hear from Doug about some recent projects.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stefan. What I thought I would do is maybe, I thought one of your slides, or one of the points in your slide, Stefan, was really poignant, and that was talking about future possibilities. In point of fact, it's not necessarily in the future, it's now. And if you were in the plenary session first thing this morning where Jean-Pascal Tricois talked about Naya Rapport, a smart city, here's an excellent example of all the things that Stefan talked about that are in fact a reality today in a project that we have implemented here just over the last 18 months. So what I thought I would do is talk a little bit more about this specific application and how it applies to smart water. I think JPT focused a lot of attention on a number of different aspects of the smart city that had been deployed. In this case, today, right now, we'll talk more specifically about the smart water aspects of this particular project. In terms of the challenges that this particular city, as it's trying to develop, encountered, I think they're exactly the same types of challenges that both Lucas and Michael talked about already. So they're clear and they're pretty consistent no matter where you go. In this particular case, looking at the overall EcoStruxure stack, we obviously have a number of connected products that Schneider is well known for. But on top of that, we implemented a water-specific SCADA system. So in this case, we really need to start with data collection and aggregation to form the foundation of whatever digitization that you want to do in the future. It has to start with collecting data from sensors. Michael mentioned how sensors are going down in cost, but certainly in this particular case, all of those devices connected through a SCADA system so that we have the start of where we want to go. So we implemented a system-wide SCADA system that connected all of those different devices, whether they're flow meters, whether they're pressure monitoring devices, whether they're valves and valve actuators, connected them all together. Now comes the really interesting part, because SCADA systems are not necessarily a new thing. Once that data is collected and in a repository where we can use it, then we apply smarter techniques, whether it's machine learning, whether it's AI, whether it's more simple historical data analysis techniques to do some smart things. And in this particular case, there were two specific aspects of what we did that were very important to this particular smart city. The first one was a water network optimization solution. So every water system will typically be associated with a hydraulic model, where whether it's these pipes, these valves, these pumps at these elevations to create an overall hydraulic model. Well, we connect that hydraulic model to the live SCADA inputs, and all of a sudden it becomes a dynamic model. If I need to take a particular section of my network down to perform maintenance, I can actually simulate what's going to happen over the next 48 hours to see how that's going to affect the quality of the water, the pressure of the water, before I take that, close that valve to isolate that part of the network and do my maintenance. When we're talking about 100-year-old infrastructure in the ground, this kind of thing is kind of important. So using some of these new technologies, we're really able to deliver that kind of capability. As well, talking about aging infrastructure in the ground, we can make sure that we manage the pressure in the system, wherever it happens to be in the system, optimally, so that we don't overpressure that aging infrastructure that's in the ground, which fundamentally creates greater leaks. So using the same basic dynamic model, we're able to reduce the leaks in that sense. Now, one step beyond that would be our water leak management solution that's, again, built on top of the SCADA system and the data collection and aggregation, built on top of that to monitor what our minimum nightly water usage is when most of the people are sleeping. We take that information and then as the day goes by, when we are using a lot of water, we can isolate leaks in the system with all the points that we're monitoring through the network. We can see where leaks occur and prioritize those leaks so that we can optimize maintenance. Again, creating more operational efficiency for the utility, sending their maintenance people to the areas of greatest concern, and just doing work in a much more efficient manner. So here's a couple of examples where we're leveraging advanced analytics today to solve problems in the water system. The last thing that I'd say is while we love to implement these kinds of solutions, this kind of technology, we couldn't really do it without Schneider Electric, in that Schneider provides us with reach into markets and geographies that we couldn't get to before. So really, back to you, Lucas. Thank you very much, and really appreciate all the support we get from Schneider Electric.
Thank you very much, Doug. And maybe, Doug, I can throw a question at you immediately. At which stage of the implementation are we currently? And how do you and the customer interface as you kick this ball further down the road and continue with some of the things that they have in mind? Is it like a extended project?
Yeah, and I would say, like most digital transformation programs, they are really journeys. Mm-hmm. And depending on the technical maturity where you start, it really dictates how fast you can make the journey and what the steps are along the way, where you start and where you go to. In this particular case, we probably started this project about 12 months ago and put in the core infrastructure, that being the metering, all the pressure measurement, et cetera, et cetera. The SCADA system was probably commissioned, I want to say, around the end of January this year. And then from there, we implemented the water network optimization solution. That was completed 2 months ago. And now we're into the final phase of the project, which is the leak management, which is more connected to their maintenance system and their maintenance teams. So you can see this gradual progression of first get the data, then do something with the data, then make sure that the people can use the data. And people are a critical aspect of this. All the technology in the world isn't going to solve many problems if we can't get our workforce to actually use them. So making sure that they have tablets to do the work with, using the kinds of technologies that we use in our everyday lives now doing it in more of an industrial context. I think these kinds of tools really help with adoption, and whatever your digital transformation journey looks like, make sure that people and the change management associated with those people is at the top of your list of priorities. It's absolutely critical to the success of the project.
Well, that was great, and thank you very much for those insights. I think this is a huge experience for all of us, and I think we'll come back to that. So right now we have about 10 minutes for open Q&A. I would suggest if you have a question, raise your hand, and then we can. We have microphones. There is a microphone at the back, but we can also hand out some of our microphones. If somebody is in the front row, we can quickly do that. So if there's a question, maybe we can take it right away, but we need the microphone back.
Hi,
Or you
I
share
have
one.
a question for Mr. Stefan. It's regarding ADB. I noticed that in 2017, ADB stopped investing in hydropower generation, and then they reinvested again in 2018 and 19, according to the chart in one of the slides. Can you elaborate more on that? Is it due to not having a sufficient technology to replace it, or is it due to the capex of the technology itself?
Thank you for the question. It's probably, as far as I know, there is still a policy to continue to invest in this topic, and it's maybe, as you know, sometimes you have a project implementation life that makes that the investment can be done only during specific years. So that probably what is explaining the gap. But as I was saying before, there is really the ADB approach regarding water cycle is really to have an overall approach and to invest on all the aspects of the water cycle. So from water resource at the catchment level until the wastewater, and now including as much as possible water reuse and recycling of water.
So nothing against the technology itself, yeah?
No. As far as I know, no. This is not. It's probably more due to the project implementation cycle. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Take it back. Thanks. Okay. Any second question from the audience?
Hello, my name is Joaquin from Schneider Electric. It's a question to Stefan as well. There's a lot of opportunities we see in the water companies on the operating expenditure side. So I see that ADB is investing a lot on the capex, on the investment of infrastructure. Are you also considering investing on reducing operational expenditure within the water companies by projects that save energy, that save leakage, that make operations more efficient, and therefore they are saving money on the field crews, on the time implementing? Because we are doing many projects, for example, of energy performance contracting in the US, because the legal framework and the financial framework allows it. This is not possible in Europe, for instance, and as far as I know, typically you raise money for a capital project, but not for optimizing, because also part of the project is to understand the potential of these benefits while you're doing an audit. So is ADB also into analyzing investment into OPEX reduction projects in water?
Thank you. So it's an interesting question regarding, as I said before, really the target is to implement more resilient, more green, and more sustainable infrastructures. And of course, the operation is an important component. So the strategy and the experience for that is that a water utility, you build it on the long term. So it's not a 1 or 2 years journey, but it's much longer. And there is an alchemy for me in building a water utility. So it means you need a lot of different components, including the capacities and including the leadership and including the management of the utility. That is, of course, linked to the operational efficiency. So if you want to build the resilience of the water utility, it needs to be cost efficient on the long term. And of course, it goes with operational cost reduction that allows to have some financial sustainability on the long term. So yes, the answer is more and more this O&M component is more and more including in the project, because there is really this very strong concern of, if you want the infrastructure to be managed in a sustainable way on the long term, you need a utility which is able to control its operational cost. So it means that being able, as you say, to better manage the team, better manage the equipment, and really have this capacity. So we have different way of supporting the water utility. We have water operation partnership. We have also in the project different operational components that we are trying more and more to include.
maybe just add on to the point that from a utilities perspective, very often the infrastructure capex is actually done quite soon, but the lifespan of the asset is a long, long time. And for utilities like PUB, where we have to manage costs and tariff is a control, it is paramount that we try to manage or lower even our operating cost. And I think diagnostic tools or predictive tools like sensors, visualization tools, data analytics is going to help us in a very, very large way. I think there's already SCADA systems in place, but the question is how do we harvest the information? So I think I always believe in the saying for water utility, every drop saved is every dollar saved. Right? So I think for us, there are many other pressing priorities as well. So if the dollars saved can be also reinvested into upgrading your network or upgrading your meters or changing your meters or even changing your valves for very simple things. So I think I fully agree with your question. I think there's a role for companies to step forward with the ideas. And I think some of these solutions, like our journey with some of my colleagues here in PUB, we have just started the journey. I think there are many new development. I think it's been leaping and bounding. And I think it's for us to know, to get familiar with the products, get our operators, like you mentioned, to be familiar with it. And I think there's a lot of unknown, especially among the operators. And the water industry has been rightfully conservative because our customer drinks straight from the tap. So you have to make sure that the product is safe, the product is reliable, sustainable. So I think for us, certainly, I think every new idea that can help us to manage costs will certainly be welcome. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. We have time for at least 2 more questions from the audience.
This is Giridhar from India. This is pertaining to the water supply system in the Singapore actually. How are you managing it actually? And it is understood actually that you manage it in the best way. One of the top 5 countries actually are very close to achieving that. And regarding the grey water and the black water actually and other things actually, what is the wastage actually finally? Are you using it to the extent of what extent it is being used? Whatever it is, rainwater or the groundwater which is collected, and how are you basically achieving the needs, and what is the future actually with respect to the increase in tourists or some other requirements or the new population? What are the plans actually you have in place generally to understand?
Thank you. It's a very long question. I think you probably need 2 more hours, Lucas. But maybe a short answer.
Just a brief it. That's
just a brief, yeah. Your first question is about how do we manage water holistically. It takes long-term planning. I can cite 3 things. Long-term planning, working closely with the industry. I think PUB has benefited a lot from working closely with the industry. We try as much to adopt new technology, enable trials, enable platforms so that people can come and share with us. We learn. I think one of the mindsets that my colleagues and I always have is that I think we continue to work hard at ideas that are implemented either at the industry or somewhere else in Asia. I think there's a lot of things that we can learn. So I think while you say we are the best, I think there's still many areas that we can do. So our holy grail is to make sure that we can recycle every drop infinitely. That's what nature does, and that's what nature does so well. So how then do we control wastages? Right? Wastages in terms of resources, wastages in terms of the water molecules. So in Singapore, we are fortunate. We worked with the industry. We have closed the water loop. We can use it. We are also fortunate that through planning, we can now have very minimal wastage through leakages. But we can do more in terms of managing demand. In Singapore, we are still about, being in the tropics, we are about 140, 130, 140. But we know of European countries who are at 90 liters per person per day. So how do we reduce consumption to that level? Right? So I think there is still a lot of work for us to do in PUB. So my PUB colleagues, we still need to work very hard. But I think with digital, with sensors, with analytics, I think we have a solution. Yeah, so we need to find new drops. We also need to save every drop that's possible. So I think it's a kind of a short answer to your good question. Thank you very much.
We would have time for one quick last question. If is there's, yep, Stefan.
Yeah, Stefan from Schneider. So maybe just if you could elaborate a bit more. So I think we are all clear on the fact that digitization is here and that on all your operations you are using sensors, power SCADA and services and analytics. Do you plan or do you have a vision to extend this to the end user, to the end consumer, in order to provide them some information about water quality, about their consumption, some kind of information we can have today in the electrical utility? So do you have some plans like that?
I think it was for you.
It's for me, is it?
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah,
three of you. Huh? Yeah.
Okay, I think as I go back to the mission. I think for Singapore it's quite clear, for PUB it's quite clear that everything we do is for our mission. And our mission is also to serve our customers the best that we can. So when you talk about giving information to the customers, I think one of the real examples that we are now facing and we are thinking of is how do we convert our manual meters into smart meters. We have seen the evolution in many cities in Europe. When do we jump on board? We did a trial. We did a trial in a small new estates in Singapore. We have smart meters, and through the smart meters, customers get real-time reading. You can monitor your consumption. So in Singapore, for our customers, you know, we manually read our meters currently. So through smart meters, we can actually detect a leak from 4 months to 4 days after processing the data. And imagine how powerful is that. It helps you to save money. It helps us to reduce wastages. And that trial has been successful. It gives us some confidence that I think smart meters is the way to go. And in Singapore, we are even so fixated on what data can do to you. So we did a trial. We put smart showers in your shower. It gives you real-time feedback, so you can monitor your performance. So let's say you used more than enough water, the polar bear on the display disappears. So we are hunting for solutions like this. Yeah. And even perhaps we are trying to use nudges, light nudges. So one of the showers actually display colors. So it goes from blue to green to yellow and to red. So you use a little bit more, you get instantaneous feedback. And the finding is interesting. It shows that people do save when they get a real-time feedback. But what is more interesting is, upon the removal of the device, your consumption don't go back to your original consumption. It is lesser. So it has sticked on you. Mm-hmm. Right? So we learned this from the Swiss. We got the device from the French. So I'm not sure where the next device is coming from, but we are extremely excited with this. So I think there's a lot of power about giving customers real-time information. And Doug, as my customer, I think you demand real-time information, wouldn't you?
As long as somebody doesn't look at me in the shower, I'm good.
That was a great example, and I want to thank all the speakers. I just need my clicker back, because my chairman would not like me to close this without showing at least the EcoStruxure story that we as industry have to offer to help enable our customers and our partners in the market to facilitate this change. You have hopefully by now all heard about EcoStruxure. You have hopefully also come by our booth. If you haven't done so, I would also advise that we have new offers that we would like to show you if you're interested. Engineering for planning and operations, EcoStruxure Power Advisor is just some new names to show it. And please, if you haven't done so, come back and see us at the water booth, but also take a look at many of the sister booths that we have here at the show. So I would say as a key takeaway from this discussion today, I think we all agree that the digital transformation in the water is accelerating. We've heard wonderful examples from all speakers about the vision, the challenges, the practice, the rollouts. And we're excited about the opportunities that we see in front of us. It is going to contribute to reducing operational costs. We see that everywhere. At the same time, I liked Stefan's views that we also need to secure proper funding vehicles to help the poorer economies, as he called it, to leapfrog into these technologies to really help them, help themselves and progress. And finally, I think Doug made a beautiful case how important it is to have partnerships and to go step by step on this journey together with your clients. And I think, Michael, you can probably say the same because you've had, in this incredible ecosystem that you've built in Singapore, you've had many, many partners and the whole industry kind of worked with you step by step. So I think these are the takeaways to be successful in the water market. With that, I would like to thank you all very much for coming, and please give our speakers a big round of applause. Thank you.